Welcome back to Your Average Investor. Today we're going to talk about financial planning, specifically as it relates to finding your FIRE number. Now, if you're not familiar with what FIRE is, it stands for Financial Independence Retire Early, and it's a movement within the financial community to say, what amount of money do I need where I could just completely retire and not have to worry about anything else? And there's a lot of different ways to do this. You can do it with real estate, you can do it with stocks. We're going to talk about stocks today, but this is applicable across any type of passive income or semi-passive income that you get. And specifically, we're going to be looking at the S&P 500 as well as a few other companies to see what would happen if I just continually invested and then got paid dividends. How long would it take until those dividends overtook my income? So let's get started. First off, let me break down this very simple Excel calculator so you can understand what we're looking at. First off, I've got here some expenses. I just filled in some very basic expenses. You may have more categories than this, you may have less, and the numbers, of course, are going to change based on your personal situation. I've assumed some fairly average numbers here, but again, you might have higher, you might have lower. So what I've done here is I've said my mortgage is $2,500 a month. You can see car payment, insurance, food, phone, etc. And then this is important. This is something a lot of people don't take into account when they are planning for financial independence, and that is the rate of inflation. What I mean by that is just because you're paying $800 a month for food today doesn't mean you'll be paying $800 a month for food 20 years from now. Historically, inflation is between 3 and 4% depending on the category, and some categories like health insurance, inflation is a whole lot higher than that. So I've set some pretty basic inflation numbers. By the way, the inflation on the mortgage is not that your mortgage payment is changing, it's that you will have a property value that increases over time and you'll have to pay higher property taxes, or potentially if you're not buying a property, you're renting, then of course your rent will increase over time as well. However, this assumption is that you've purchased a home and you are planning on living in that home for the next 30, 40 years until you retire. Now, in addition to that, we've got yearly contributions. This is the number of dollars that you're going to be contributing each year to your stock portfolio. And then down here, we've got different investments. The S&P 500 with a current invested amount of $10,000. Realty income, this is a dividend REIT, real estate investment trust. This would be similar to a real estate investment. $3,000. JP Morgan, to get some little diversity with banks, $3,000. Home Depot, $1,000. This is assuming the rate of increase that they've experienced over the last 15 years continues moving forward. This takes their dividends and changes it into a monthly dividend. So if you take their yearly dividend yield, divide it by 12, this is approximately what you'd be getting every month, even though they pay out depending. So this is every 3 months, this is every month, on and on. And then this is what percent of your yearly contribution is going towards that. So half of it to SPY, 20% to real estate, 20% to JP Morgan, 10% to Home Depot. And again, your stock portfolio may be totally different than this. Here's how it works though. Look at this. So I've got 17. Oh, hang on. I got to change these numbers here. I wanted to round this out to an even $20,000. So we're going to go 4,000, 4,000, and 2,000. I've got $20,000 invested right now. And by the way, this works no matter how old you are, because we're not going to be doing it based on when you turn 65. We're just talking about number of years until you can retire. 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, on and on. So in this case, we've got $20,000 invested, and don't worry, we're going to have an example of starting at zero. We'll also have an example of only investing in SPY, nothing else. Then you don't have to worry about rebalancing or watching a specific company to see if it's doing well or anything like that. You can just throw it in SPY and forget about it. But for this argument, we're going to go 20 grand, split across these 4 investments, and see what happens over time, right? So our expenses are going to be going up as we scroll across here. And of course, so are, this is the important number here, our total dividends. Our total dividend payment every month is going up. And something magical is going to happen right here in year 33. In year 33, our total monthly expenses are $9,100, and our total monthly dividend payments are $9,659. Now here's a little caveat. I've not incorporated taxes. You still have to, unless you've invested in a Roth IRA, You're still going to be paying taxes on your dividends, and it's going to be a tax rate of about 15%, unless you have some other ways to deduct taxes out of this. So you may push this out a couple years, but this is a simple example. So at this point, 33 years from now, you can financially retire because your dividends are more than paying for what your monthly expenses are. Now, what's great about this is I can say, you know what? Maybe I fool around with this a little bit. Maybe I get a less expensive car. I don't need a $400 a month monthly payment for my car. So maybe go $300 a month, and maybe I decide to do a little bit less in my hobbies, spend a little bit less there. Well, now look at this. What I've just done is I've brought this 1 year sooner. Now I can retire in 32 years instead of 33 years. See this? My expenses are $8,100 and my dividends are $8,500. Now, what's important here, this is not including reinvesting your dividends. Typically during this, you're going to be working and you're going to be continuing to pay for your bills and all your expenses with your money from your active income, your job. Well, what if you take these dividends and instead of spending them each month, you reinvest it back into the company that paid you the dividend? Let's look at that next. So we're going to take the same thing. We've got our dividends reinvested now, and check this out. Instead of retiring at year 33, you can now retire at year 29. I want to show you something else I've done here. At year 30, it's assumed that your house is paid off. You haven't done any cash out refis. You haven't moved. This is an assumption. It's a big assumption, but it is an assumption that we're making in this spreadsheet because it makes a big difference on the RE part of financial independence, retire early, because you can reduce your monthly expenses by a whole lot when you eventually own your home outright. Now, there's some people out there that will tell you, you know what, that's not a good idea. You should be taking the equity out of your home and investing it into cash flowing assets like a rental property or even buying more stocks or something like that. That's a decision between you and your financial planner, or if you consider yourself your own financial planner, you want to watch some YouTube videos, read some articles, go for it. But you've got to decide if that's worth it to you. We're playing a pretty safe example here, which is pay off the house and have a home that's free and clear of any debt, and then you just have to pay property taxes. That's why there's still a monthly payment here, is because of annual property taxes. But again, in this case, now year 29, but let's say we did those same things. We took hobbies down to $50 and we took our car payment down to $300. Well, when you look at that, it actually stays in the same month, but it gets pretty close to year 28. It's almost eclipsing in year 28, $9,400 in expenses, $8,950 in total dividends. Now let's do one more example here. What we're going to do this time, because inflation exists, not just with expenses, but inflation also exists with income. Every year, you should be getting a raise, which means every year you should be increasing your contributions to your retirement account. So let's say you are increasing your contributions by 5% every single year. So now what you're doing is you're taking that exact same scenario, you're reinvesting the dividends, and you're increasing your contributions by 5%. So year 2, $10,500, year 3, just over $11,000, on and on and on. Now in this case, we've just gone from 29 years to 27 years until you can retire and not have to worry about working ever again, because your dividends take care of everything. And if we pull this same scenario, $300 on the car payment, $50 here, well, in that case, it almost brings us again into year 26. So if you're watching this, you're 18 years old, you're 19, you're 20 years old, then you're thinking in your mind, oh my gosh, I could retire at 43, 44 years old. That's pretty dang incredible. And it is incredible. And that's what you should be aiming for. But if you're watching this and you're, say, 30 years old, well, what you're thinking is, I can still retire early. I don't have to work to 65 or 70 years old. I could retire at 55. Or if I up my yearly contributions to, say, $15,000, well, oh my gosh, would you look at that? Now I can retire in 24 years. And if I increase them to, say, $20,000, oh my gosh, would you look at that? Now I can retire in 22 years. So you can see how you can play around with this and figure out what happens. But what if you don't even want to invest in anything else other than the S&P 500? What does that look like? We're going to take everything to zero besides the S&P 500. We're going to keep reinvesting dividends, and we're going to keep increasing your annual contributions every year. Well, in this case, it's actually pretty dang remarkable what happens. You're still retiring in 34 years. You can see here your expenses 9,400 and your total dividends 9,000, almost $9,800. So 34 years you can retire. And what's also incredible is when you retire, the value of your shares in the S&P 500 will be roughly $7.8 million. $7.8 million. That's starting with $20,000 and increasing that by $10,000 every single year. Pretty dang incredible. What if you increase it by $20,000 every single year, though? What happens then? Well, let's just rewind the clock, give you some years of your life back, and look at this. You can basically retire here at year 29. Absolutely incredible. Let's say you get a $10,000 raise at work, or you skill up, you get a job, you're making $20,000 more a month, and you just want to dump all of that in there. Let's move this up to $30,000 per year now, and look how many years of your life you're getting back. You can just rewind the clock. Look at this. 26 years. In 26 years you can retire. Totally done. You're invested in SPY 100%, the S&P 500. So you can just set it, forget about it. It will automatically rebalance itself. You don't have to worry. But what if you're starting at zero? What if you don't have 20 grand sitting in your stock account right now? That's okay too. Check this out. Starting at zero, only investing in the S&P 500, 36 years. That's all it takes. So you're watching this at 18 years old. You're going, okay, what's 18 plus 36? Okay, 18 plus 36. Well, we got 24 plus 30 is 54. I could retire at 54 years old if the only thing I did is every year put $10,000 into the S&P 500. Now you might be saying, well, that's crazy because I don't have $10,000 to put into the S&P 500. That's fine, but you need to do everything in your power to get there. Everything in your power to get to $10,000 a month that you can, not a month, a year that you can put into the S&P 500, because that is what is going to build your financial independence and allow you to retire earlier than 65. The great thing too is when you hit 65 or whatever the year is, then if Social Security still exists at that point, you can start drawing from Social Security. I'm not banking on it. Most of the people my age that I know aren't banking on it. I don't think you should be banking on it either. You should be saying, how can I be in complete financial control of my future? And this is how you do it. You skill up, you work hard, you start a side hustle if you need to, you go get some education, so you can get a job doing something that makes more money than you're making right now, and you increase those yearly contributions. Like let's just say you lived on rice and beans. You're making $100,000 a year. You're living on rice and beans. 100,000, call it 100,000 after taxes for simplicity. You're living on rice and beans, and your expenses are $50,000 a year. So you can put in a full $50,000 every single year into the S&P 500. Oh, this gets nuts. Watch this. Look how many years of your life you can save. Boom. Check that out. Now instead of taking, 36 years, you've just taken off 15 years of how long it's going to take you to retire. And now you can retire in just 21 years, starting at zero. But that's the kicker right there. You're gonna get compound interest working in your favor, of course, but this is the kicker. The more you can contribute to your financial independence every year, the faster you get there and the more of your life you can save. Thanks for watching, everybody. Subscribe if you haven't already. We'll catch you on the next one.